Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manny Tejeda, one of the program directors here at CFES Learning Pathways. We're excited to kick things off today. This is part of our career exploration series where we bring jobs of the future, jobs of today to you all, and it's meant to expose you to as many careers as possible. So some of these jobs you might have never heard of, or their organizations, or how folks got into this field, and that's what we hope to dive in a little bit deeper today. So we have Carissa here with us from HiredScore, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, tell you just briefly what she does, and then I'll have some questions. So I encourage everyone to also type in some questions. But then we'll dive in deeper as to, who is HiredScore as a organization, as a company, and then how does that impact you all as students who will be coming down the pipeline to be applying for jobs, and what do you want to look forward to, and how can you prepare yourself? So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can introduce yourself, and I'm going to mute myself because I'm at a Starbucks currently. I do not have this awesome painting at my house, although it's quite nice, and I wish I did. But I'll turn it over to you.
Good. Thank you, Manny. Hi, everyone. My name is Carissa Brock. I work for a company called HiredScore, and my role is a customer success manager. I've been a customer success manager for about 3 years, but only been with HiredScore for about 1. I love my job. I love what I do. I'm so excited to talk with you all today and tell you a little bit more about HiredScore and just how I ended up in this career path, because I didn't start that way. So really excited to talk with you.
That's great, Carissa, and I'm very interested to hear once you share kind of how you got to where you are. But can you share with us, who HiredScore is as a company? What do you guys do?
Absolutely. So I would describe us as an artificial intelligence technology company, which is a lot of big technical words, but to best describe it, we're like a Lego, if you've ever played with a Lego piece. So we sit on top of other platforms to make them work better. So I work with recruiters, I work with people who are trying to find other people for jobs at their company, and I help them work faster, work safer, and in a more quicker manner.
That's awesome. And I can definitely see the Lego on top.
Yes.
My kids are into Lego, so that's great. So I know you have some slides that you want to go over.
Yeah.
I do have a ton of questions that I, even from that brief introduction, I could probably ask you 10. But we'll get to that once you go over your slides.
Sure. Awesome. All right. So this was sent over to me, my CCR map. I'm definitely going to go through all of this with you, but I wanted to make sure that you guys saw that I saw it as well. So again, about HiredScore, we help the world's most innovative companies discover and manage talent globally. That's what we call like an elevator pitch. So like under a minute, can I explain what my company does? And that's how I describe it. So that's me. I grew up in a town called Beacon, New York. If you're familiar with New York City, I'm about 70 minutes north of New York City, Manhattan. So when I graduated high school, I immediately went into the city and went to film school. I love to write, I love to act. So I went to New York Film Academy for 2 years with a concentration on production, writing, and acting. So I did do a lot of acting work. I've been in a couple of movies. I've met a ton of famous people. But I knew that I wanted to go back to school at some point and really settle in on my career, but I didn't know what else I really could do. So I went into sales, and I had a sales career for about 8 years before customer success, which is what I've been doing for the last year. So I sold jewelry. I worked at a fitness club before I ended up at an HR company called Paychecks. And that's really when I started to go into HR tech. And around that time in my career, I decided I wanted to go back to school for my bachelor's degree, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study. And I landed on marketing. And as an adult learner, I got my bachelor's in marketing. And I think I did much better as an adult learner than I was a teenage learner, I will say that. But loved going back to school, loved being focused, and I really love marketing. So some of my interests, I love to travel. I'm actually headed to Europe next year. I love to write. I still love to act when I can, small group theaters or improv classes. I love to read. I love buying things. I bought a house last year, so I'm always buying things for my new house. And as far as fitness is concerned, I'm a power lifter. So I've done a couple of competitions in powerlifting. Some of my goals are I want to give back to my parents. They've done everything for me. So anything that I can do to pay it forward and return the favor, I try and will continue to try. I want to travel the world and absolutely learn something new every day. As far as my essential skills, definitely get A's and B's because as an adult learner, C's and D's don't matter. I have to get an A or a B in order to pass. With teamwork, as far as my work, group projects, always try to collaborate with your friends, always try to collaborate with your group members, don't work on alone. Leadership, always stand up for what you believe in. Perseverance, I'm terrible at math, I will fully admit it, but I always ask for help when I'm struggling. And then with networking, try to talk to a new friend within their first week. Every person is just a friend that you haven't met yet. So some of the careers that I considered, obviously an actor, as I said, I wanted to be a teacher at one point. When I was in middle school, I thought about being a doctor, maybe working in production, and then being a recruiter, which is really interesting because now I work with recruiters every single day. So I kind of get to be a recruiter without being a recruiter. So how did I find the right college? So I was an adult, so I was able to do a lot of research, and I was able to consult with my parents and my family and my friends on what I should do as far as school. And then that picture on the left is a picture of my town, that's Beacon, New York. So that's a picture of our main street. And how did I find the right college? Lots of research. And then I asked other colleagues of mine, friends of friends, what they do and what if they like their job. Because it's super important to like your job and like what you do every day, because you're going to be doing it for a really long time. So my day as a customer success manager, and I just want to call out that very pretty octopus, that's actually Elsa, but our octopus JB is what we call it at HiredScore, but there's a couple of them that you might see, and that one just happens to be Elsa. So my morning usually starts with reviewing emails from clients and peers, and I tend to have a lot of early meetings. And then 9 to 12, I work on what's called success planning for clients. I have to make sure that they're successful, that they're using HiredScore, and that they're happy. So I'm meeting with them. I try to break for lunch 12 to 1, and I usually will cook something at home because I work from home. And then from 1 to 4, I call it tying up any loose ends, which really can be anything. They could be additional meetings, I could be success planning, it could be anything throughout the day that I just need to finish up. And then of course, at my end of my day, I prep for the next day. And that's it.
This is awesome. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned obviously your support network helped you kind of figure out, but how was it like for you in high school and trying to make a decision about what were you going to do after high school? We have a lot of students who, they think they know what they want to do, or they say, wow, I don't really know what I want to do, and I don't know how to, make the next step.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
So I really struggled with not knowing. And I know now as an adult that it's okay to not know what you want to do for the rest of your life. When I was in high school, like I said, I was terrible at math. I was more on the creative side. I loved acting. I loved the theater. I was very into sports, but as far as a career or in business, I had no idea. And it's really interesting because my mom is an engineer, which is super technical, and my dad is a chef, which is a little more creative. So I felt very stuck in between the two. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But I will say, go with your passion. You can always change your mind later. You can always shift and pivot and do something else. But if you're still in high school trying to figure it out, think about what you're passionate about. You can make any job out of that.
That is certainly very true. Now, were there any, did either your parents influence you in one way or another? Like, did they want you to go into culinary or engineering?
Of course, my dad absolutely wanted me to be a baker, not a chef. He wanted me to do more desserts. And my mom, of course, wanted me to go into engineering, but none of those things appealed to me. I can barely bake a cookie. So they didn't really appeal to me too much. So I don't think they were too thrilled with me going into film school, but they did see how happy I was. And I think ultimately for them, they were like, she's happy and hopefully it works out. But if not, she at least got the experience and got to do exactly what she was passionate about at that time.
And I think that's so key because we hear from students sometimes who are, I'm not gonna say peer pressured, but for lack of a better term, we'll use peer pressure, especially from families, parents who want them to be, lawyers, doctors, engineers, and having that conversation sometimes can be very daunting. So it's good that, you talked about kind of the passion. And how do you do that? Well, you can show them, you can show them what you really are interested in. And, as parents, I have two kids and, I don't want to put too much pressure into what they want to do, but I want them to figure out what are the things that they are interested in, and then how can I support them? Because ultimately, that's really going to lead them to be more successful, enjoy what they're doing, and like you said, if it doesn't work, you find something else, right?
Exactly. There's always something else to do. And your passions might change over time too. Am I as passionate as I was about writing? No, but I still do it because I love it. But you change your passions.
That's great. Now, you can feel free to share if you want, but I'm very curious. I love watching shows, movies, and stuff. So, what are some of these productions that we might know that you've been
Yeah,
part of?
so let's see. I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched Step Up. I was in the third one with Channing Tatum. He was in the first one, but the third one I was in a couple of MTV commercials for the Video Music Awards, a show called Nurse Jackie, The Good Wife. We're going back about 10 years. So some older shows, I don't know if they're still even in production anymore. But was in a movie with Keanu Reeves a few years ago. So yeah, those are some of my top hits.
That's awesome. So, can you, not going too far from here, but what was your favorite crew to be part of when you were in?
Sure. So I was in a I was a small part in a very, I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, but it was Jennifer Aniston and Gerard Butler. And I played a very small role in it. And Jennifer Aniston was one of the nicest people I have ever met. She is so kind. And you would think this huge A-list celebrity might be kind of standoffish or mean, but she was just so kind. So that always stuck with me.
That's great. That's great. So, walk us through a little bit that transition from, obviously you went back to school,
Mm-hmm.
and how easy or difficult was it for you to navigate?
Yeah. It was hard because I was so passionate about it, but I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be. So I needed to really make sure that I was taking care of myself, wanting to still take care of my parents, making as much money as I possibly can, and then put, acting and writing kind of in the back seat, still in the car, but maybe in the back seat. So it was kind of a tough decision to really be honest with myself and say, I really, really love this, but do I really want to not be able to provide for myself or for my parents in the future? So that's where I was like, okay, it's time to really kind of change paths here a little bit.
You brought up a good point about going to college a little bit later? Obviously, many students say, I want to go right after high school. I don't want to waste any time, or, I'm afraid if I go and work, I'm never going to go back to school. So how was that for you in terms of going to school as a later? You mentioned that it was easier because you actually enjoyed being in school, probably more than what you would have as a student, early or younger student. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, for sure. And I will say, out of all of my friends, I think there's two of us that actually are doing the work that they went to school in. Like, I have a degree in it. I have a friend that's, has a degree in psychology, and she's not doing anything with psychology. And she went to college right out of high school. She wasn't passionate about it. She just picked something because she felt that that's what she had to do. She just had to go to school. So I'm honestly glad I followed my passion after high school and became adult learner, because I am so much more committed to it, because it's what I picked as an adult, middle of my career, to say, yes, this is what I want for my life. I don't know how well I would have done if I had just gotten a degree in anything. I probably would have had to go back to school for a master's in what I wanted to do, which is even more money and even more school. But I would say, unless you're 100% passionate about something, you can wait, you can join the workforce, save money. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So now, fast forward, you graduated college, you go in the workforce. So how was that search for you?
Well, it wasn't too hard. I'm definitely a people person, which is why I think I ended up in sales. My mom always says I can have a conversation with a coconut, and it's probably true, because I can talk to anyone. And so I think that's how I landed in sales. And selling jewelry was really cool, working at a few retail stores, meeting a lot of people. And then eventually working out at a gym, and then meeting a salesperson, and that kind of just worked out. And then over time, you network, you meet people, you meet members. And that's how I stumbled into my career in HR. I just had a member, we had a conversation. He's like, I'm going to refer you to this position. And the rest is kind of history from there.
That's great. I mean, I'm glad you touched base on a lot of the essential skills, because as we work with students across the country, we've really emphasized these skills, and they can obviously see the value from their daily lives. But when you use them, whether it be to get into school, whether it be to network to get a job, or in your case, you probably weren't even looking for a job, but that it just fell on your lap. And sometimes it's as easy as that. So you could just use them to advance whatever you want, or you might, in this case, you didn't even know, but you could also use it to give back to others. So that person, it was also networking. They're essentially doing, I'm sure, some of the work that you are doing for your company, right? But that's that human element of it. So I'm curious,
Exactly.
can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned obviously that you're kind of the Lego on top when it comes to recruitment. What are some of the companies that you're working with to kind of provide kind of that more efficient recruitment for larger companies?
Sure. I have a really great company that I think you're all familiar with. Domino's Pizza is a really exciting company. And I'm sure we all just are familiar with the restaurants, right? And the people that make the pizzas, and the cashiers, and the drivers. But there are so many people that make Domino's happen. There's people that control how people are paid. There's people that control them paying their taxes. There's recruiters inside making recipes. There's chefs that make the pizzas and the products. There's so many people that can be hired for Domino's. So I work with their recruiters and sourcers so they can find those people to fill those jobs.
That's a great example. So how does a company like Domino's, for instance, go out and recruit for different positions? Are they using platforms?
So there's kind of a mix. Yeah, so a lot of them are using platforms. Some of them use social media like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, or they use job boards. They might use LinkedIn and Indeed. And then, of course, there's word of mouth, there's internal referrals. Manny, I might refer you into a job at Domino's if I already work at Domino's. So lots of different ways to find talent there. But what we do is we'll sit on top of what's called an applicant tracking system. So those are those two Lego pieces that go together. And we just find the best people. We'll take a candidate's resume and match them with a job description, and we'll do a little artificial intelligence and do a match to see who's the best person for the job.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was going to be my follow-up question in terms of where does artificial intelligence come in. And I think, it's a good segue into how can students prepare for kind of the job market of, my sense is artificial intelligence will play even a larger role as we look at filling positions, even today, as we still have many positions, even though all we hear about is, all these companies, big companies laying people off. So I'm curious if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say learn as many skills as possible. That's really the ticket here. I don't know if you guys are on LinkedIn or will ever be on LinkedIn, or if you go to college, definitely learn a lot of skills. Even something as simple as knowing Microsoft Word really well is a skill that you can use in the workforce. And then that might lead you into learning Excel or PowerPoint, which are really, really great skills that will help you. If you're more of a Mac person, I'm not. I'm on a Mac right now, but I'm not a Mac person. If you're more of a Mac person, that's definitely going to be helpful. If you love social media, if you love making content in the business world, that's super helpful with clients making your own content. I would just say whatever you're doing now, try to turn that into a job. Definitely hone in on your skills.
That's great. And to connect the dots, let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned the passion, follow your passion. How do you merge your passions with the skills that you're developing to provide kind of that benefit? I mean, we always hear about companies who struggle with social media. We had a panel at our conference talking about the use of social media in higher education, so that students, schools, and colleges can actually communicate, because social media really is about staying connected. But I think that there's a lot of disconnect in terms of how do we use the content for our benefit, meaning to learn about colleges or even careers. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I have a really interesting story. It wasn't for Domino's, it was for a different client. And it wasn't using HiredScore or the applicant tracking system at all, but they were looking for a person for their job. And normally somebody would send in their resume, hope to get a phone call, get an interview, and go through those phases. But this person actually made a TikTok video of their resume, basically who they are, where they come from, the jobs that they've had, the skills that they have, and sent it in and ended up getting the job, which I thought was really, really cool.
That is awesome. That might be an activity we might be able to do with some of our scholars.
Yeah.
So not to go into a lot of details, obviously, I'm sure there's a secret sauce for HiredScore, but you talked about skills but how do you best present yourself in your resume or even on a LinkedIn profile so that you might be matched with companies perhaps that you didn't know were actually on your radar and you could be a good fit for?
Yeah. First of all, network with as many people as possible. I always accept connection requests because you just never know. And then with LinkedIn, you can take a ton of different learning courses on LinkedIn to help you with skills, but on your page, you want to have a picture of yourself. If someone doesn't have a picture, I might not accept a connection request, but definitely have a picture. Definitely write about yourself. There's a space to write about what you do, what you've done, who you are, what you're passionate about. And you just never know, the right person might see that, or a friend of a friend might see it, which is really cool about LinkedIn. Like, I don't have to be connected to Manny to know what Manny does. I might see it from one of his connections. which is really great.
That's great. And I know a lot of students, one, they might not take the time to really think about themselves. But I think that TikTok idea is really key because you only have a short amount of time. So it's almost like you got to develop your elevator pitch. You got 30 seconds, boom, tell me about yourself. So what tip would you give to a student? And this is where acting comes into play, I'm sure. But what advice would you give to a student who perhaps they don't know how to talk about themselves?
So what I would suggest is interview your friends and family and ask them what they think about you. Because your friends and your family know you best. Maybe you don't like talking about yourself, but if someone says to you, hey, I think you're really funny, use that. Use that to your advantage, or I think you're really kind, or I think you're a people person, or you're really great at math. Listen to them and then use that. And another tip is whenever I'm making any videos for my clients, I always have sticky notes all around my computer screen because you can't see it, but I can see it. And that keeps me on track. It keeps me on task, and it really helps me make points that I might have forgotten about before.
I think that's a great suggestion because sometimes, especially our parents or family members, they might see us in a different light. I mean, they've seen you kind of evolve over time. So you might think, or you might not think to highlight something like, let's say, we'll use being funny as an example or being great in math, but they might see it and it's valuable because those are the things that you're never going to highlight. So in that case, you'll never be picked up based on those things because you are not putting forth that as a strength that you have. So this has been awesome. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm glad that having a picture on my LinkedIn helped me get a connection with you. So that's perfect.
Absolutely. That's what did it. Without a picture, it'd be a no-go.
That's too funny. Well, we appreciate again you taking the time to chat with us and share with us a little bit more about one, your path, which is outstanding, and thank you for sharing that. Two, about obviously HiredScore, and three, the tips that you shared for our scholars on how they can really present themselves and how they can develop skills and showcase them in a way that will get them picked up by these companies.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Until next time.
Bye, everyone.